Welcome back to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. We're talking to Alan Witters, Standard Harvest. Alan, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing really good. Give our audience a background on you, and then let's talk about Standard Harvest and some of the questions we have stacked up for you.
Oh, sure. Well, name is Alan Witters. I've been a serial entrepreneur for all my life, I guess. Started my first companies when I was 18 or 19 years old. Took my first one public when I was 25. Done a lot of interesting mergers and acquisitions, and probably one of the larger companies I've built is a company called Whamnet in the mid-'90s, where we started building the first cloud infrastructures. And ever since then, we've been building platforms.
Impressive. All right, Standard Harvest, what are we doing here? What does this do?
Well, we're into building transformational applications and platforms for small, medium, and even large and even industry groups. We build value chain platforms. We use a no-code environment called Betty Blocks. It's one of the newcomers out on the street, and every 2 or 3 years we see some new development tools come out. And we're now into what's a no-code environment, which means we don't have to depend on a bunch of developers in the backside. We can actually just use business expertise to build really large applications and platforms.
Okay. All right. Digital transformation. If you don't transform your business structures and functions to digitals, you're going to be a dinosaur. I kind of like that statement. It's obvious to everybody, but you still drive it home for us.
Well, think about 10 years ago. Some people still didn't have email addresses or mobile phones or even a computer in front of them. And now, if you look at a company, you will find that every single employee is digitally connected. They have an email address. They've got mobile devices. And this means that out at the edges, all the business aspects are digitizing themselves. And what's happening is a lot of times the large enterprises themselves are now going through this transformational, and it's a gut-wrenching stage because they have to not only change how they're doing business, but they're moving to a completely new approach where they have to take all the paper and all the manual things that they were doing, and we basically got to digitize those structures and digitize those functions. And this brings in new methods of monetization that they have to look at. One of the biggest examples is what Amazon and all the cloud providers have done is they've took a capital equipment expense, typically for IT, and now turned it into a unitized pay-by-the-second expense, which is a culture change and shock for the way we used to do business.
I'll say. Ed, you got any questions?
Alan, Ed Baxter at Bison Tree Capital. Kind of moving toward your foundational application here in Betty Blocks, how easy is it for a layman to essentially build a relatively complicated application or app that runs on your platform? How easy is it for someone to do that?
Well, if you go to our website, standardharvest.com, and you go to the apps and platforms section, we define 6 different types of apps and platforms, so it's easy to sort of see where you fit. We start with a simple app, and you can literally do a person that's familiar with Betty Blocks can actually do that in a week. You could build a simple app. We quote and estimate 2 to 4 weeks to put an app out. Then you get into the apps that have to have multiple heads on them, multi-view apps, where you might have an app for a sales guy and an app for the back office or maybe logistics to see when orders come in from the sales guy. Those kinds of apps take a little while longer, and then you keep going up into the complexity chain, and we get into things that do mashups, a lot of mashup apps where we're looking at multiple data sources and databases, and people just want to see one piece of glass or one screen in front of them that shows them the whole picture. And then we graduate on up to where we have what I call the proverbial data ball out there that keeps getting kicked down the hallway by everybody. We look at it as a diamond, and that's your crown jewels of the enterprise. And that diamond has facets on it, and those facets are just views into this really interesting thing called data that everybody has a different view. They all have different personalities on how they have to look at this data. And so then we get into what we call these multi-app, start getting into the platforms. We're moving from apps to portals to platforms. And then we even get into apps where you might have an app for every single department, keeping everybody in tune with what's going on in the business. And then we even go out into the value chain, where you might have an app that's all talking to the same cloud-based system that's out in front of your customers, in front of your salespeople, your marketing people, your channel, over on the supply side, and internally. And that's what we call a value chain platform.
Okay, I've got a question here. You've got a new term for me that I haven't heard before called ZeroCodes. What does it do?
Basically, we basically have built foundational modules like a CRM, like a DRM, digital relationship managers, communications managers, and you can literally plug these things together. They'll self-communicate to each other, and you can then, all you have to do is basically add the front end nomenclatures that affect your business, and you can bring whole platforms together very quickly.
All right, who's buying it and how are they using it?
All kinds of customers are buying it. It could be one-person teams to Fortune, ones. So,
okay. How do you see this whole industry sector that you're in the middle of evolving as we go forward into the future?
We're seeing a lot about going on with what we call citizen developers. And citizen developers are, where you might have an administrative person or a tech person in a department where they can actually throw together a quick app using something like Betty Blocks. We see whole marketing groups and whole business units that don't have IT groups coming to us where we offer a full service approach. We're building a channel for our customers to talk to. So we're signing up dealers all the time, and that channel actually gives us now reach. And what you find is that you create a whole bunch of reusable objects in these systems like Betty Blocks that you don't have to go back and recode it. And I think this is the natural progression as people got tired of writing the same database fields down for a contact manager. Why don't we just have a module that does that?
Got it. Any other questions, Ed, before we close out?
No more questions from Ed.
All right. We're about ready to close out on our segment here. Any last words about you, your company, that you want to leave our listening audience with?
Well, anybody that's looking for digital transformation, we've got 20-some years experience. We can help you guys. And probably the biggest thing is the cultural change and transformation has to go through. You might be able to deliver these apps in a few weeks or months. It's going to take a lot longer for typically large enterprises to go through the transformational change.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate you being on the show.
Yep. Thank you.
My pleasure. Alan Witters, Standard Harvest, standardharvest.com. You've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba and Ed Baxter. Segment brought to you by Tycon Partners. I want to thank everybody domestically and around the globe for tuning in to CEO Money. Talk to you soon. Thank you.